Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, November 21st, Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board meeting. We have a quorum, so I'd like to call the meeting to order and confirm that there are no changes to the agenda that was posted. I assume you've all received and had a chance to look at your meeting notes?
Yes.
Any comments, questions? And I think we'll accept the meeting notes as submitted. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Michael.
Second.
Edna? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. You've all received the draft November 7th minutes.
Yes.
Any corrections or additions? No? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Thank you, Edna. Second by Craig. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention, the motion carries. I have no correspondence or announcements. Does anyone else? No. Okay. Then I think we'll proceed with the new application portion of the meeting tonight. First up is the Rhinebeck Hotel, Car Key, 4 Grinnell Street, amended site plan and special use permit. Oh, Victoria?
Hi, good evening. Victoria Polidoro from Woodhouse and Shaw Polidoro, here on behalf of Key LLC, which is the owner of the historic Rhinebeck Hotel. Also with me tonight is Kyle Ahern from Labella, formerly Chasen Engineering. In 2005, the town of Rhinebeck approved the site plan for the complete renovation of the historic hotel with 9 guest rooms and a 139-seat restaurant and catering facility. It's been in continuous operation since then, but in the past 2 years, the Rhinecliff has had to explore options for on- and off-site parking, giving Amtrak's impending site renovation. They are set to begin renovation of their train station, and it is going to require that some of the spaces be limited, modified, reduced for the hotel during construction and potentially after. An alternate parking plan was prepared at the time of approval in 2005, which showed 22 off-street parking spaces. But after consultation with the town and looking at the site build-out, we believe that build-out is not desirable given the aesthetics of the hamlet and given the location of the wastewater treatment plant. Once it was constructed, it does limit the ability to put some of those spaces in. So we're here tonight to present a smaller plan for off-street parking of 9 new spaces, and that's in addition to the 2 existing handicap spaces. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kyle, and he can walk you through the site plan. Thank you.
Good evening. Aaron from Labella, as Victoria said. So if you take it to the site plan, yes. So you can see the 2 spaces directly in front of the hotel are currently a loading space. The only 2 existing off-street parking spaces are the southeast corner, where there's the 1 space with the hatching.
It's very hard to see from here. You might want to use them for
Just a laser pointer, push the top button, it's over.
Perfect, because mine, I found out, died today, and I didn't have an extra button battery for it. All right, so this is one of the existing spaces. It will remain. The hatching is because it's handicap parking, so you need that for accessibility. So that will remain 1. The other is up here. This is an existing ADA space as well. So all the additional spaces are the 2 within the loading area here. We are actually adding a 3rd within that vicinity as well. And in order to accommodate that, there's currently basically a half-circle retaining wall just to the north of those spaces, between the spaces in the hotel building. So this whole lower area is like a lower terrace area to the level below. A lot of grade change on this site. As I'm sure you're all aware of this whole area slopes down pretty significantly down to the train station and the river beyond it. You can see this area specifically, all these contours. It's essentially a vertical cliff between the 2. But over here, so the existing retaining wall, we are actually, there's a space between that retaining wall and the stairwells here. So along the stairs, it's another retaining wall, and we are connecting the 2, which then you can fill in this gap with that extra space. So by combining those two retaining walls, that loading area becomes 3 parking spaces. And then if you come over to this area, so that ADA space I talked about, currently the fencing goes essentially right around those 2 spaces and then along Grinnell. So we're proposing to cut that fence back to here and then extend this parking all the way up to, there's a slight hill here and then underground propane tanks in this area here. So we're extending as far as we can before we hit that, the subsurface structures there. So that fencing that's currently there is going to be either relocated or if that's not feasible, it will be replaced with new fencing that is, matches what's currently there. Same with the retaining wall, it's fencing that matches what's already there as well. This is like a black steel fence, and this is a white cedar fence with this kind of like a historic detail arch between each of the posts. Also proposing between the parking and the fence is a sidewalk for just getting from your parking space down to a hotel without walking through now. And also some hydrangeas along the fence line that should grow to about 3 or 4 feet. We're not trying to cut off all views, especially down to the river, but just to provide a little bit of screening between the parking area and the remaining lawn area here. Everything else, as Victoria said, you know, this whole area here is wastewater facilities. You know, so that pretty much goes right up to Grinnell, so there's really not any room, you know, off Grinnell itself for additional parking. And that's kind of the long and short of the engineering side of it. Do you want to talk about anything else?
Happy to answer questions.
Yep.
Jim, do you have comments? Want to start with that?
I've got a couple. You know, we do anticipate, we talked about some of the pre-con that, you know, we may get people voicing concern about vehicles pulling out on Grinnell Street. I do think that type of movement will be kind of normalized over time. Patrons and others will get used to it, you know, over time as we move forward, if this gets approved. But I did have a couple comments and questions. One is that there are some spaces that aren't fully 90 degrees to the road. I'm a little concerned that depending on how people park, it may get a little dicey for people getting in and out of it, particularly if they have larger vehicles. There's not a lot of space, if any, really between the spaces in the road. And with that, I did want to mention, I think we need you to reach out to Bob Wyatt and get any kind of input from him about the spaces to make sure he doesn't have any concerns, particularly when it comes to plowing snow removal. I mean, obviously we have off-street parking in the hamlet, but I do think we need to get his input on that to make sure he's okay with what you're proposing. And then the other one related to the parking spaces themselves is I'm a little concerned about the parallel parking space. You know, I see how you put it in there, but the reality is it's going to be pretty tight for someone to get in there, and it doesn't leave a lot of room between it and one of those 2 front end spaces that are there. I am concerned you may get some door dings, you may get some cars bumping into each other, particularly if it's icy. It's a little odd to see the parallel spot and next to those 2, just given the geography, or the geometry. So those were kind of my comments about the spaces themselves.
Is it possible to turn that parallel space and get it on an angle?
So both of the things you mentioned as far as those spaces go, the angle and the parallel space proximity, if we made those 90 degrees, there wouldn't be room for the parallel space, but they would be 90 degrees and you wouldn't have that awkwardness. You know, we were trying to squeeze every last space we could out of this thing, as I think that shows. So I guess it's you know, it's a balancing act, and if the board thinks that it's a trade-off that's worth making, then we would go with this. But if we think that it's not worth it for one space to just make it 2 head-on, 90-degree spaces and lose the parallel space, then we're open to that as well.
Victoria, going forward, you said 139 seat dining room, and how many guest rooms?
There's 9 guest rooms.
Right. So are we assuming that use will continue at the same level?
The applicant has no plans to change the use at this point. You know, they've been holding some pop-up events at the restaurant. I don't, once this parking facility is built, I think it's less likely that they're going to have large-scale events like weddings here. But at this point, they're not proposing to give that up.
Okay, questions from other planning board members?
When you look at the line of parking spots, they seem to protrude into the road. I don't quite understand that.
This is Rhinebeck, and if, the original plan also had spaces in the road, and, you know, a lot of the lot lines here shift depending on the survey you're looking at, and so, you know, we believe there's a history of some spaces being located partially off of the roadway.
I also just want to, as far as the protruding into the road, the 8 by 9, or 18, excuse me, by 9 space itself is off the road. You can actually see the,
Right, it's not on the paved way, but it is in the right of
So
way.
the striping actually ends here, and then the pavement itself goes a little beyond that, just because they're going to pave it in a straight line from curb line to curb line.
So are you saying that any cars parked in that space will not have to be in the roadway? It doesn't seem to be true, looking at
Not
how.
in the paved way.
As long as they park within their parking space, which some people are better at others, you know, the code mandated dimension is out of the pavement, you know, the actual public right of way, public street, I should say.
And we understand we need to get some approval from highway super.
That's why I mentioned, it's an 18-foot long parking space, so it is a full-size parking space, but it butts right up against the road. I mean, it's not necessarily uncommon, it's uncommon, I think, in the hamlet, but we know we do have on-street parking, but all of it is a change that the outline needs to look at and consider. I mean, any front-end spaces are going to be paved right up to the edge of the road. So the question is whether he's comfortable with the cars, in my opinion, sitting right up against the street, or not.
Right, and if you go to the hotel now where the turnaround is, cars routinely park there, and so they're already utilizing that area as parking from time to time. And it doesn't seem to interfere with the roadway itself.
The turnaround is off the street.
Well, you can see that the turnaround is off the street, but the right of way is there. But it doesn't go into the paved way.
Correct.
And then there's also this parking space essentially remaining exactly as it currently is. So there's people that park there. And we're not aware of any, you know, issues with that.
Does that sidewalk area exist right now? And for that one spot?
So yes, so this is actually currently a drop curb for that ADA space, and then you can come directly into the building here. All of that is to remain. This lower patio area is all to remain down to this existing space here. The only thing that's changing as far as the circulation, pedestrian circulation goes, is this connection here is being connected there.
Yeah, but you have there's an area between the row of hydrangeas and the parking pad?
Oh, yes, and this is a new sidewalk. So this, from this space up is new, yes. But this and over is existing.
Okay, so there is a little bit of a margin there.
Right.
You're just extending that.
So can we go back to the existing conditions plan? Might actually have to go. Is there that good anymore? All right, so yes, sorry, that sidewalk's not there, but this, to the side of that accessible aisle is existing, yes.
The retaining wall that you're extending on the semicircle, how will those people get from their cars down to the hotel?
So they would use these steps here, which, so this is an existing sidewalk as well, which we are essentially realigning in this portion, but otherwise this is remaining as is.
Where's the curb cut and ramp?
That's for this ADA space
So
here.
there's two ADA spaces because there's two levels. So where the circular turn drive is,
Yeah.
that's the one level. And so there's an ADA space that goes directly to that level
Which is actually
from there. And then you can follow the pathway into the side door. And then if you needed to go to the second floor, that person would park at the other ADA space.
Jim, you have one?
Yep, two other comments, just to get on the record. So Victoria said that it's been in continuous operation.
Yes.
To state, because this is one of the questions I had. So it's been in continuous operation consistent with the site plan special use permit that was granted previously and the variances that related to it. So the uses that have been going on are consistent with that approved use.
I mean, is there something that you're concerned about? Because I'm unaware of any issues with the...
I just want to make sure it was in continuous operation, because if it wasn't in continuous operation consistent with that approved plan, then we'd have an
Sure,
issue.
so except for, there was a period during COVID where they were not allowed to be operating. And so we did write to the town and we, marked that period of time. But yes, it has been in use since then. They've been leasing some of the rooms or renting them, especially if there's a local college that has visiting professors from time to time for conferences. And so the hotel has been in use. And there have been pop-up events in the restaurant. They had a visiting chef come and do an event. I think they had two visiting chefs, one was Dominican and I don't remember the other one. But they've been holding some kind of events.
Was there a period of time when it was only used as an off-premises catering facility?
Only as off-premises? I can't answer that. I don't know. The chefs come and they use the kitchen.
No, I was under the impression that James Chapman was using it, was actually maybe leasing it, I don't know what the arrangement was, and using it as the base for off-premises catering. Now that may...
That might have been. So James Chapman was an owner-operator at one time, and then he sold it to the current owners, but continued to operate for a long period of time until he left during COVID. And so I'm not privy to all of his business records, but we know that it was in operation.
I'm just trying to sort out what continuous operation means. To me, to some extent, it would mean open to the public for the purposes for which it was given the special use permit. So I'm just thinking it through.
Okay.
Right, that's what I was just trying to make sure that we're consistent with the original approvals, as you mentioned in the cover letter. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page when it comes to the operations. The other comment I have is you raised it, I didn't think about it, the fencing. If you're going to keep the fencing, just if you can take a picture of it, show us a picture. That way we have it for the file when things move forward. If it's moved, if you are going to change the fencing, I think we need a cut of that fencing so we can take a look at it.
So on the
and make sure
detail sheet, it's
Oh, is it on the detail sheet?
Right, yep.
The existing one?
Well, it's technically called the proposed fencing, but it's also called out as matching the existing.
Yeah, the two fences right now are slightly different, and the proposal is to make them the same.
I'll double check that now. I think that was it.
Anyone else? Okay. Jim, I think you have a procedural resolution.
So it's a draft procedure resolution for your consideration tonight for site plan and special use permit by the Rhinebeck Hotel for, parking spaces, parking spaces along Canal Street, accepting the application, supporting documents is adequate for further review by the planning board, supervisors, and the public. Proposing the actions, classifying the action as type 2 under seeker, which coordinated quality review is precluded. We will send this to the CAB, the WAC, HAPAC for review, as well as Dutchess County Planning. We need to schedule a public hearing for
December 20th.
Is that?
December 20th.
And 2 planning board members for a site visit.
Who would like to go? Sean? Who would like to go with Sean?
I can go.
Joe? Is that Joe?
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Okay, could I have a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution? So moved. Thank you. And a second, please.
Second.
Second, Craig, all those in favor? Opposed, abstention, motion carries. All right, next,
I'm sorry, December 20th is a Tuesday?
yes, because Monday is the first day of the month.
Okay, great. Just making sure.
Next up, Sarah Baldwin and Joseph Fuller, site plan and special use permit with Warren. Is he going to present?
Good evening. We were viewing this as an amended application as well for what that's worth, even though that technically doesn't exist in the town of Rhinebeck regulations. With me this evening are Joseph Fuller and Sarah Baldwin, the proud owners of 52 Orchard Drive. As you know, we were before this board last year for the approval of the conversion of the former garage into a mudroom and office for Joseph, and then a connection between that and the pre-existing principal residence there. And we had, as part of that application, included the Douglas mini split system to provide heating and cooling to the new office area. In the process of discussing this with their HVAC subcontractors, Sarah and Joseph decided that it made sense to convert the entire house to that kind of basically electric heating system, that as we move from fossil fuel burning to producing electricity another way, they'll be all electric and ready for that. So, but for that, of course, they need to remove their oil tank and their existing heating system and install additional outdoor condensers as part of the heat pump units. So what they propose to do is add two that will be under the front porch. There's plenty of room. There's lattice behind hedges at the front porch, so those will be completely invisible. The one in the back here is one that was always intended to serve the former garage converted to an office. And there are two more proposed for the south side, right against the wall. And at the request of the language of the pre-app conference, we submitted some photos showing basically all you would see from the neighboring properties are lines running up the walls to where the units enter the house. And those will be painted to match the siding. So they'll be pretty unobtrusive. The units themselves are below the fence between Sarah and Joseph's residence and the adjacent residence, and really are pretty much invisible even when this is from Corning Street, and so there would only be lines running up to the units there visible. And you know, condensers on that side. Again, from Orchard Drive, maybe under the porch, and then this is the south side of the house. You can see the two units here, basically along the stairwall, that are screened by shrubbery, but also there's a picket fence between that and the adjacent property to the south. There's another view of the line running up. And the last unit is back here, where at one time there was a door out the back of the garage, and that's completely screened by a taller lattice fence and shrubbery. So essentially, it's as unobtrusive as we can make it, not visible from the street pretty much in any case. And we were hoping that this is something the planning board could approve as an amendment to the previously submitted site plan without a full additional review. But that's entirely in your hands, and I'm happy to answer any questions, or Joseph and Sarah could as well if you have any for that.
I have no planning issues or comments. I think primarily, excuse me, it's just a discussion of aesthetics, historic preservation, and other things like that that we look at and handle it. They don't really seem to create any issues to them. Obviously, they're important, they don't create any issues at all. The other piece seems to be screened as far as all, so it's a discussion.
Comments, questions, planning board members?
They do make noise, right?
They have fan noise in their operating.
Is there any directionality? Do they emit more noise in one direction as opposed to another, like orienting them
Yeah, I
directly?
understand what you're saying. I mean, generally, the fan unit is in the long face, so that's what you're going to hear the most of it. But I would say in most cases, the noise is going to be affected or amplified or not by the surroundings. So if it's bouncing off a hard surface, or if it's muted by shrubbery, that can make a difference how much you hear. But I'd say in terms of ambient noise in a neighborhood, particularly in a hamlet like Rhinecliff, I would say it's fairly insignificant.
What are your thoughts, folks? Michael, do you see any options here?
Since I have a system like this, and it's not an issue. So, how they could do any more to try and visually exclude this from their neighbors. Also, this is the way we are going in the country. As soon as putting solar panels on roofs, we're going to fossil fuel heavy heating system. And these are very popular, they function very nicely. They're a lot quieter than compressors are these things. And compressors are a lot quieter than these from efficient. I think it's another case of this is the time we're changing and these are the way we're changing. The necessary aspects of housing to go forward. I personally don't see the reason to do a whole big review of it. We'll do, let's say we're adding on an addition as they did or something like that. Or putting in different windows, things of that sort, which actually obviously modify the house and part of the house. The other thing is, we've always said, this stuff comes right off the wall. And you can get rid of it, probably later now, or if you had to. It's not a permanent change, as it would be if you're putting in some sort of fossil fuel fire system, chimney and all that. I think it's something that we have to modify how we do these things. Because I think for me, there is significant alteration to the aesthetics, and I think they're a necessary component of housing to go for.
So are you in favor of the site plan modification? Let's do a full review.
I don't think we need a full review for that, because it's something we could almost do, and probably, unfortunately, didn't do when it was initially before us. That would probably be the way to go. We had no problem with the one for the office areas. I feel this falls into the same category. I would almost think of it as a field change, something along those lines. I just don't see it as an aesthetic challenge to the integrity of the aesthetic value of this historic structure.
Other planning board members? Your thoughts?
I don't see any issues to be resolved by a site visit. I think the pictures are very helpful.
Okay, Jim, what are you? You're doodling away there.
I'm putting together an approval resolution. As we speak, because I didn't have.
Is everyone
That's
in
the way you wanna
agreement?
go.
Is it-
Yes.
Right, I'm here in Sean. Craig, Joe, is this okay with you? With your approach we're taking?
I mean, is it possible this is going to have an impact on the neighbors if it, because?
We asked specifically about that, on the ones on the south, when we had the pre-conference meeting, and I think as Warren's explained it, with shrubbery, screening and fence, it's my understanding that it's highly unlikely that it would be visible from the southern neighbor. And then the two are under the porch, and one was already approved. So that's my understanding of how this works. So the only possible view would be of the two on the south, which I think you explained would be adequately
Yeah,
screened.
well, I'm just thinking purely in terms of sound, but as Michael pointed out, these are quieter, and, the fact that one was approved.
Yeah. Well, I would also think that shrubbery and the fence would also muffle the
Well,
sound.
it does, and also these units are replacing, window AC units, which in summers tend to be both unsafe and also somewhat noisy themselves.
That's a good point. Jim, what might you have for us?
Creative English 101.
The Wizard of Oz is working behind the screen. Yes, we'll have to have a motion to wait for the public hearing, so we'll buy Jim a little more time here.
I will so move to the public hearing.
Motion, second by Sean, all those in favor? Opposed, abstention, motion carries.
Okay. Okay, so, if the planning board is the draft approval resolution for Baldwin Fuller, and this is where we talked about the HVAC units, not the last one, sorry about that. For application for site plan special use permit amendment, Site plan amendment should say at 52 Orchard Drive, reaffirming the action as type 2 under seeker. Based upon the submitted information, finding the work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 125, waiving the public hearing requirements as is permitted by the zoning code. With respect to the application for the special use permit, authorize installation of the HVAC system, finding the work and intended use to be consistent with general standards. No, we're just doing site plan, aren't we? No, scratch that. This is what happened when we were going. With respect to the application for site plan approval, finding the proposed work and intended use to be consistent with Town Code Chapter 125, and approving the application inclusive of the materials, the site plan by Warren Temple Smith dated October 28, 2022, and asking you to authorize the planning board chair to stamp and sign the site plan within 6 calendar months of the adoption of the resolution subject to the 3 items listed. So it's site plan only, not special use.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second? Thank you, Ed. I will call the board. Michael? Craig?
Aye.
Edna? Sean?
Aye.
Joe? And I vote aye. The spirit of the holiday is upon us.
God bless us, everyone.
Yes. Good luck with your project. All right. As we're well past 6:15, we can move into the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. And first up is Lebotsky Soil Mine, 344 White Schoolhouse Road. Site plan and special use permit mine permit renewal. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Mark Levinsky, representing John Lebotsky with regard to a renewal of the site plan and special permit for a soil mine which is located on White Schoolhouse Road. This mine has been in existence for several years. I believe this is the third permit renewal that I'm back in front of this board for, which is coincidental with renewal with New York State DEC. I note to the board that the renewal was submitted to the DEC back in July of this year, and have not heard back from DEC since the submission, assuming that there are no issues with her earlier. But I've reached out to DEC requesting some correspondence or just notification of whether or not this permit will be reviewed. So as I mentioned before, the mine is located on the western side of White Schoolhouse Road. This is Hilltop Road right here. Total parcel size is 54 acres, which you can see right here on the location map. As I mentioned, this mine has been in existence for several years. So this gray portion is all area that has been previously mined and reclaimed. So this dash line here is a pond. This is a mining permit that allows for above water table and below water table mining of sand and gravel. And so this is the pond area. And then per New York State DEC requirements, this is the limit of mining area through here, all through here. So this area has already been reclaimed. And then for this permit term, the only mining that is going to take place is in this area right here. There's a small area right now which is above the water table, and then it will be, when the pond will then be completed, this will be the new shoreline of the pond. That area is only a third of an acre through here. This is a third of an acre. The balance of it will be replanted as this will be seeded and grassed through here. So this is the only area that is allowed by DEC to continue on. So it's a very small area to finish up. And this road, access road will remain, but once again, this whole area will be, this will be pond, the edge of the pond, and then this will be reseeded. The mine is currently part of the Vonderleaf soil mine, as we, before the application for the Vonderleaf soil mine, which is located right here. And so typically Vonderleaf's mine material here, and we take it to this mine for processing, or it's mined directly from, it's loaded directly and brought off-site to a project. Similar to the Vonderleaf soil mine, it is only used for material by Vonderleaf excavation. At the last meeting, the board asked that I provide information with regard to traffic generation for this project, and it's exactly the same as when application for Vonderleaf was made. It also considered this soil mine in its truck traffic on White Schoolhouse Road. So that is now, that was echoed in this application, and that information provided to the board. Thank you.
Jim, comments?
I don't have anything new since the last discussion that we had. We did get the traffic report, well, the traffic analysis, I should say, which was a request. Other than that, I think boxes have been checked. It's been
Comments from planning board members, questions?
Some question, curiosity. There's no inlet or outlet for the pond, right?
That's correct. It's groundwater flow.
Yeah. So what keeps it from becoming stagnant? It doesn't move.
It's constantly moving in the groundwater. I've been there for 15 years, and it's just crystal clear.
It's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason to not grant an approval this evening. I think we've covered all the bases of this application.
one condition.
Yes.
If you want to consider that, would be coming back to the table. If
Yes.
it's not
The same that we brought up on the previous application about coming back, which I think we talked to you about.
Yes, and that has been
Do you
brought
want
to
to
the...
explain again so that for the public and,
Actually, do you have the terminology?
Yeah, no, I can do it. So I just want to make sure before we go, if we go forward with this, that in this resolution, as we did with Vonderleaf, and as a lot of people know, there's been a lot of discussion about heavy truck traffic on White Schoolhouse Road. So as we did with the previous mine renewal, and I would like to put into this resolution as well, we just ask that the applicant be willing to come back to the table in the future if there's a need to have a discussion about truck traffic. This obviously is not changing anything from the existing condition. But if the third mining operation on White Schoolhouse Road comes back into the table, we just want to be able to have all operators at the table to talk about traffic. We just want to make sure that's an acceptable.
It
addition
is.
to the
That
resolution.
has been discussed.
Otherwise, the resolutions are pretty much the same as we've been doing for years.
okay.
There was a site visit, Craig and Joe, and then I think Joe from CAD was also there.
We had the report of the site visit previously.
I think we just because.
Oh, did we?
Yeah,
we do both mines at
And
the
then
same
we
time?
have to take a look.
Right, I forgot.
I think we're covered.
Well,
We did go back out.
yeah, Joe and I went and we gave our assessment at the last,
Okay.
the last meeting, and really, it's operations are going to be much the same as they were in the past. It is not a very large area. It's about the size of this room. And
I think Ron really told us on the site visit, he only has 3 trucks for his, got transport stuff back and forth. That's his entire fleet. And it's only his trucks.
That's correct.
I don't, so we have to close the public hearing and we have the draft seeker. I think we need to do the draft seeker first.
Yes, you have to do the secret process.
So you have, do you want to run through the draft seeker resolution?
Yep. I think you're ready to do that.
Are you ready?
Pull that up on the screen. So the first first item for the board's consideration tonight is a draft seeker resolution for the soil mine, asking the town planning board to act on the soil mine application for the special use permit and site plan at 344 White Schoolhouse Road within the RC5 zoning district and the MIO mining overlay, as well as Ag District 20, in accordance with the terms and requirements of the 5-year DEC mining and reclamation permit renewal, to authorize continuation of the unconsolidated mining operations for the purposes of extracting standing gravel within approximately a third of an acre area at the perimeter of the pond within the 12.3 acre parcel life of mine area with no on-site processing activity on a 54 acre parcel of land, as well as consider a waiver request under Town Code Chapter 120 wetlands to waive a wetland requirement that has been done in the past. Part 1, pursuant to the planning board's classification of the actions unlisted under seeker, determining upon its review of the short EAF Part 1 and discussions of the projects that both the criteria for determining significance set forth in that title and field observation of the existing mining operation associated site rehab, the proposed action will not cause potential significant adverse impact on the environment and thus issue a negative declaration under seeker, deeming the environmental impact statement not be required, and stating that such will not be prepared, and authorizing the chair to execute the short EAF and direct the clerk to distribute and file the executed determination of significance as required by seeker. And that would just be the part 2 checklist when it comes to the short.
Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Michael. Second. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Michael?
Second.
Edna, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Now we can move on to the draft approval resolution.
What's your moment?
Not necessary.
Draft approval resolution for your consideration for the mining application, again, at 344 White Schoolhouse Road within the RC5 and the mining overlay district, Ag District 20, and in accordance with the terms and requirements of the 5-year DEC mining reclamation permit renewal for a 0.03 acre area on the perimeter of the pond. Reaffirming the actions unlisted under seeker and finding the negative declaration deeming an environmental impact statement is not required, and stating that such will not be prepared. Based upon the submitted information, finding the work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 125. With respect to the waiver, and this is the one we discussed earlier, requested for development near the wetlands per section 128A, waiving the requirements under that section for the applicability of the wetlands permit has been done in the past for this operation. With respect to the special use permit, finding the proposed work and intended use to be consistent with the general standards for special use permits set forth in Chapter 125, waiving any other time limitations set forth within Chapter 125 with respect to the special use permit to provide the termination date of the special use permit coincides with the termination dates set forth in the New York State DEC. Granting the requested special use permit conditioned upon site plan approval under the following conditions. Number 1, the applicant will continue to work with the town planning board regarding discussions, concerns, and assessment of the combined truck traffic impact on White Schoolhouse Road, and be willing to come back to the table should such discussion be necessary. Number 2, per code, Chapter 125, limiting this renewal to a term of 5 years. Limiting the trucks employed in the haulage of sand and gravel to not more than a 10 mil 12 cubic yard capacity truck, as has been done in the past. Limiting mining and loading activities between the hours of 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, except the Saturday operations may occur no more than 4 times a year, as stated there. Requiring an annual inspection of the mine by the zoning enforcement officer and the planning board engineer, with inspections to occur on about September 15th with a written report. In lieu of the performance, the maintenance and performance guarantee of the town of Rhinebeck, required that the applicant inform the town zoning enforcement officer and planning board of the final site work recommendation is in progress, according with DEC, and that the operations will be done with maintenance and operation in good standing under the terms of the DEC permit. With respect to the application for site plan approval, finding the proposed work and intended use consistent with Town Code Chapter 125, and authorizing approval of the application inclusive of the materials submitted by Mark Kaminsky dated September 26, 2022. I do believe we need to have a condition here, based on what Mark said today, which is conditioned on New York State DEC approval, receiving New York State DEC approval. And then authorizing the planning board chair to stamp and sign the site plan upon the applicant's satisfaction through four conditions below, which is going to include the mine reclamation.
So, do I have to wait for signature or approval for PEC before it can be signed with them, or Because what I'd like to do is be able to forward a resolution to DEC to say that the town has approved it, contingent on DEC approval or something like that. Conditional.
Conditional.
Conditional, I mean, whatever is the board's.
But would DEC accept the fact that tonight the board approves the resolution, so it is approved, simply waiting for DEC to come up with a permit so that you can stamp and sign?
I'd like to send something to them.
So they can certainly have a copy of the approved resolution.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, it also occurs to me that we haven't been keeping our planning board engineer involved in
No, we
this.
have- Or our zoning enforcement.
It's a reminder to us that we probably want to send this resolution on to Christian just to make sure he's aware of it and to the zoning enforcement.
So the conditional would be something effective conditioned on New York State DEC approval to allow for stamp and signature. Is that?
Yeah, just, is there any sunset on that? Because DEC, takes the time. So I guess I could always request an extension.
Special
Is there
insurance,
a-
one second, 6 months.
Is it 6 months?
Oh, they can, it's a 6 month. What?
Special use permit.
Extension.
Yeah, an extension.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're talking about getting approval tonight, right? So, yeah, I think we'd have, even though if there's a condition there,
Yeah.
it's an approval. And that should tell DEC it is an actual approval.
Okay. And so it's good for 6 months, right?
6, and then you can do it 6 months.
Okay.
Special use is a year, 6 months for the site
For site
plan.
Okay.
Extend the site plan.
Is it typical that DEC requires the town to approve its permit before they will give final approval to their permit?
No, because the last one on Bonnerman, they approved, and then you approved.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a new request.
No, I'm just trying to move along.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think he's speaking to maybe the unpredictability of
I just want to say, hey, I have town approval. Where's
the.
your?
Okay. Everybody okay with that? So may I have a motion to accept the draft
So
approval
moved.
resolution? Thank you, Michael. Second by Sean. I'll poll the board. Michael?
Aye.
Edna? Aye. Sean?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
The second and last public hearing for this evening is Jacob Briggs, 19 Duchess Terrace, site plan and special use permit.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Hello.
I'm here to get approval so I can start building on 19 Duchess Terrace.
Okay.
I believe that we got the approval from the Board of Health.
We're a little confused
And so am I.
as to exactly what was conveyed to us. I found the communication from Mr. Pearson a bit unclear.
Okay, I've been very unclear with him too because I've been talking to him for the last couple of weeks. Tonight I had to meet him out here in the town parking lot to sign the things because they sent me down there twice to sign the wrong papers.
Okay.
And I was, I don't know, I was confused too, but he said that he thought that the board would let me go forward on something, I guess he sent to Gretchen or something. I don't know. I have no idea. Never went through this before, so I don't know.
Basically, because of the site and whatnot, an actual typical health department approval, the site just won't meet the requirements for that, but they can give an acceptance, which basically would permit the town to then go ahead and get the necessary.
So they're saying that they're accepting it even though it doesn't meet the
Yes,
They're accepting but not approved.
but not approved.
Right, that's what I didn't understand. We went through this whole thing, but they're accepting it, but they're not approving it.
And
And then they made me sign a thing that I'm totally responsible if anything happens.
on you.
But that's why I didn't know why they didn't, I just had a new septic system
Right.
in the old house, a brand new one by Jeff Decker put in, and a 1,000-gallon tank and a 650-gallon dry well there. Why couldn't I use that? I'm gonna be responsible for it anyway. That's why I don't know why, and then they told me to get an engineer and everything. I spent $5,000 to get an engineer, and it was stupid to do so. because they didn't approve it anyway. And then my engineer wrote up another plan for another septic, and he didn't like it, so he made him do it over again. And now we're at the one that he did now. So I don't understand any of it.
And was there also something in there about he needed to speak to someone else in the department?
Yeah, the email said he was going to attempt to get acceptance on the plan from the supervisor today.
Did you get that?
I didn't receive anything.
Yeah.
Well, I think that this signature he gave us tonight
Signature helps.
was required in order to get that.
Right.
He was
So
waiting
that
for
probably won't
that.
happen until tomorrow.
They called, I was busy Friday, they called me about 3:30, they said I had to sign this thing. I couldn't get to Poughkeepsie on time, so he lives in Red Hook. He told me he took the plans to Red Hook. He was supposed to contact me over the weekend, which he didn't do. This morning I called, they sent me to Poughkeepsie to sign, I signed something and it was the wrong thing because he had it in his car. But all I'm trying to tell you people is, I've lived there since 1967. I left for a couple years. My mother ran a family care home out of there. We had 8 state patients. We had me and my brother, and my mother and father lived in the house. We never had no problems with the septic system, and I just want to tell you that in Rhine Cliff, there's many problems. Our septic does not go into the storm drain. I'm just saying, like much of the other part of Rhine Cliff. So I don't know why they're giving me such a hard time.
Well, I suspect regulations have changed over the years.
Well, I know that, but like I said, I've lived there for 55 years, and I just had brand new septic tanks put in there, new tanks, new dry wells, and the whole thing, and the house burnt down. It wasn't because I wanted to tear it down, there was nothing left.
I understand.
So why couldn't I use what's there?
Yeah. Very good questions. Jim, what are your thoughts? Michael, I mean, 2 people who are
From what Dave Pearson sent me, he said the acceptance is for a 1-bedroom house, is that correct?
Yeah, but that to me too wasn't fair either, because the house had 5 bedrooms since we lived there. And now they're taking me down to a 1-bedroom apartment, 1 bedroom. That doesn't seem fair. What I have there is a 1,200-gallon tank and a 650-gallon dry well, which is good for a 3 or 4 bedroom house.
The problem is, the town of Rhinebeck doesn't have a sanitary code, so we're dependent upon the Dutchess County Health Department to tell us what is and is not permitted from the sewage disposal system standpoint.
Okay.
So if they say a 1-bedroom house, we're stuck with that. We can't go beyond that. We wouldn't be able to give you a building permit for it. It's
Well,
really
it
that's
just
in the
seems-
Health department's hands.
In my point, going from a 5-bedroom house to a
No,
1-bedroom
I
house, I'm
understand
really
that.
losing
what, I don't have.
the equity in the home.
Yeah, I understand.
How many bedrooms are you proposing? I don't have it in front of me.
Well, we were proposing 1 bedroom, and then we brought this up before. I wanted an office upstairs and then a playroom upstairs for the kids.
So you are in agreement with Mr. Pearson that you will have 1 bedroom?
That's it. That's right.
So
I'm
we don't-
okay with
We don't
that.
need to debate how many you had before.
Right, okay.
At this moment in time, Dave is saying he sized it from, he's okay
Yes,
with 1.
yes,
and
we
you-
knew that,
And
yes.
you want 1, so
Right.
that's a good thing.
But we have 2 other rooms that could be bedrooms.
That was the original discussion.
Right, that's what we brought up a long time ago. This lady brought up, but we're not going to use them for bedrooms, but that's,
As I discussed with you, our code does say if they meet the uniform building code, the egress and egress things of that sort, they're considered bedrooms. If they don't meet the building code for bedrooms, in other words, how far from the floor or something like that, if they're designed in such a way that legally they can't be bedrooms under the uniform building code, then they would be a playroom in an office.
okay.
So
Does that make
we
sense?
decrease the size of a window that might be considered egress.
Or just, another foot off the floor or something more than it has to be.
Okay.
To be.
Yeah,
I'm sure that could be accomplished.
willing to do that, that's all.
And then it's
Just
no
want
longer
to get
meets
back
the
in the
building
house,
code.
that's all.
Because the way our zoning law is written, if it meets the building code, it has to be considered potential bedroom. And if
Right.
it doesn't meet the building code, then
Okay.
it doesn't.
We'd have to see that change.
Well, if you're going to consider approval, I think there has to be a condition site plans amendment. The amended site plan would have to be reviewed to detail that it is in fact treated as a one-bedroom house. And the other thing is that if there are any issues, like if you were to get approval by the planning board and the county comes back and says you have to change your site plans again, you may have to start the process with the planning board all over again. That's always part of it. So, I mean, if the things we're talking about are slight changes to the windows, and the planning board doesn't have an issue with those, then I think that, that's one thing for your consideration. But if the county comes back with a much different changes, if you have to eliminate something, or you have to do a significant change in the floor plan, which changes the layout of the house.
By the, when you say the county, you're talking about the health department?
County health, yeah.
Okay, well, they're approving.
Because we're going to approve, if there's approval by the planning board, it would be approving whatever county health approves. So if county health changes what they looked at tonight, you'd have to come back.
So if they change what they said in their email today, that would be a different story. Because basically they were saying that all they're waiting for is one more signature, right? And sign off at the health department.
I guess I didn't totally understand.
Yeah, that's what he told, that's what he told
Well,
me.
we were all baffled.
Well, I was too, because I didn't know what was going on, and then he said you signed the wrong, I went to Poughkeepsie this morning to sign something. The lady gave it to me, and it was the plans from the previous septic that he turned down. And then he had them in his car, so I met him here by the statue at 5 o'clock to sign the papers.
Right, I think we appreciate that, and we get that. I just want to make sure you understand, if the planning board moves forward, and we do this with anyone with a conditional approval, if anything changes from what was approved tonight, and the condition will be very specific to say the site plan will be reworked to change the size of the windows or whatever it is we end up with if we go there, any changes beyond that to the site plan would require you to come back and start the process over again. I just don't want to do that. I know you want to move forward, but yeah, you know.
Gretchen?
You want to continue?
No, I don't.
Well, that's the thing, there are other options.
And get it.
The other thing we did do, as Gretchen's pointing out, is continue it to the 5th.
It's 2 weeks.
It would be the 5th, so the 2 weeks
For 2
instead of a
weeks
month.
to button this all up, so you don't have the risk of having to come back. So that we get everything settled.
Yeah, that's
Everything's settled
okay. I
for
mean,
Dave.
it's been long enough now, but I'd just like to get moving before it gets,
We get that, the conditional approvals
I know.
with their own risk, and that's why I want to make sure you understand what we're talking
And
about.
could the drawings be changed then to make clear that those upstairs
Yes.
rooms?
It'd
I
be-
think that would be
It
a
would be a condition of approval that the rooms be so designed under the building that they cannot be built.
All right. So we'll work with him to get that language. Jim will share with you the language he's proposing so that you're comfortable with that.
Okay.
But the condition is going to be that they are not usable as bedrooms in some fashion or form the way he's going to like it.
So we could have those elevations on the plans redrawn by the 5th, so it would reflect that.
Yes.
If you can do that so we don't have a condition at all, that'd be even better.
Yeah.
If the planning board looks
Okay.
at it
If
and
you
says
can't
we
get it
agree.
done, we'll make it a condition. If you can get them changed,
I think
it'll be
we
better.
we can get it done.
Yeah.
Okay, then
Just
I
gonna
think,
draw up the line a little higher.
Yeah. The white out.
Raise the sill.
right.
And do you all want copies of those, or should we just get one copy for the file? And an electronic version?
Electronic version and one copy for the file is fine. Okay, so we're all on the same page here?
Sounds
So
good.
what we're doing?
5th of December.
Could I have a motion to continue the public hearing?
Second.
Since there's no one else in the room, I don't think I'll bother asking if anyone wants to make public comment. But we'll continue anyway, so.
okay, thanks, guys.
Could I have do I have a motion in a second? Did you
Yes,
get
and,
that?
Joe?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. I'm sorry.
It's all right, I was confused just as much as you guys were.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Happy
Take
Thanksgiving.
care.
Enjoy the holiday.
All right, we have a zoning referral. Jim?
Yes, I can make this quick if you'd just like to get out of here tonight. I don't believe I have enough information to provide you with a recommendation for how to move forward with the signs. Based on my review, I don't think what's been proposed actually meets the code, but I do think there is the potential, and I have to talk with the zoning administrator, maybe the building department, that there may be existing non-conforming elements to this that we can look into. They may need variances, but I actually don't have dimensions on anything. I can rough out some of it, I couldn't rough out all of it, so it's really hard for me to give you a recommendation when I don't even have the
Your job
dimensions.
to rough it up.
So my recommendation is that we go back to the applicant and say we need more information, much more detailed information related to what I have in here. And I can go through it if you want, but I don't think you need to.
I agree. I agree.
Basically what it is they're replacing the wording from records to north south. What they have currently up there now are just banner signs compared to signs.
Oh, but they haven't given us adequate information. You really know about that?
I'd have to go down and see if I can do that.
I can put them on the screen, but I don't believe so, not to give you more information.
Do we know? That was someone else's signs for the camera.
Well, I saw there were submitted two sets of plans, and on one set of plans it showed the sign at the road being externally lit, and then the language of the application and also one of the other plans showed it being lit internally.
You know, they were going to do that and they were told they can't.
But they submitted a confusing
They did submit.
application.
Yeah, so which is a-
somewhat confusing from the beginning.
They're gonna be, yeah.
All right, I think our...
So this is what has been proposed, as you can see, there are no real dimensions on here. It doesn't really tell me anything. I tried to rough out sizes based on, car bay widths, and it's not fair to the applicant or to you. I also have some questions, why there's a flag shown on the side of the wall with the sign plan that isn't there in the existing picture. Is that considered to be a sign? The office also has a new put over with the word office on it, which technically could be considered a sign. So there are a bunch of questions and just more information that we need before we can move forward. I think I'll give you, my review information is necessary for you to be able to make an educated decision.
What would you like the motion to say?
Go back to the applicant requesting additional information and I'll work on it.
We can do that.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we're at the point of asking for an adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Motion and second, all those in favor? And if I could ask you all just to hang for a few minutes after the meeting concludes and the recording is done. That would be terrific. But I will say on the record, happy Thanksgiving. I hope
Happy
everyone
Thanksgiving.
enjoys